Inga and I were recognizing that you have the great collectors like the Reitzmans, the Linskys, who are individuals, but in this generation, as the inexpensive price of the Duccio shows, it's the commitment of many to enable us to gain objects. And so we thought that it would be nice if Philippe and Keith could speak briefly about not the Duccio as great art, which we all know about from many ways, but the Duccio as how it fits into the idea of collecting at the Met, and then we will do the collecting of drawings with George, and then go to lunch on the balcony. Thank you.
I simply want to say this dirt cheap. It's a third the price of a Klimt, who is a one-note artist. It's a good note, but he's still a one-note artist. And everything that Keith wrote in his wonderful bulletin is absolutely accurate. On that note, Keith.
Yeah. I want to make a comment just about, since it's about collecting. It's one of the most astonishing changes in the history of American taste. If you think of the Lehman collection, with its great concentration of gold ground paintings together with French 19th century paintings and then Dutch paintings, Netherlandish painting, a wonderful sort of universal collection without, however, any Italian Baroque art. Today, the young collectors I know are interested in Italian Baroque art, and I'm thrilled with it. It's an area that we have built up consciously in this collection. We have transformed the collection from something that was almost non-existent into really something that begins to look like what it should at the Metropolitan Museum. But all collectors of early Italian painting have simply disappeared. I think Everett and I have been on the if our antlers our antennae are out, and if we had heard of anybody, we would leap for them. The only sign of a hint of a change of taste is, I think, Richard Feigen's collecting of gold ground paintings that has occurred in the last 10 years, and I hope that this is beginning to inaugurate a new period. You would think that we would have the whole spectrum of early Italian painting, which is, of course, the bedrock upon which all of Western painting is constructed, but we don't. And Philippe, as a curator, played a key role in the acquisition of the 4 Lorenzo Monicos, which are keystones, great pictures. I was a graduate student at UCLA when I remember reading Philippe's bulletin after their acquisition. I thought, this is spectacular. We are fortunate we have a Giotto. Anybody who thinks that they can go through the collection and get the kind of survey that we're fortunate to have with the early Netherlandish paintings, will find that many big names are simply not there. There's no Masaccio in this collection. There's no Leonardo da Vinci in this collection. We were able to do Van Eyck to Bruegel, but in Italian art it would be Masaccio to Leonardo. We're missing both the beginning and the end points. We have lots of in between. Similarly, for the Trecento, Giotto is the great name, and the next one is Duccio. For the next generation of Sienese painting, Pietro Ambrogio Lorenzetti, Simone Martini. We have a beautiful set of Simone Martinis divided, interestingly, once again, a case of division. The centerpiece of an altarpiece, one of its wings in the Lehman collection, the other wing in our collection, and they belong together as a group. We had no, however, narrative picture by one of these great Trecento artists, and I really thought that the occasion to present the Pietro Lorenzetti was going to be the high point of my career here. I'd seen it at Wildenstein's 13 years before it was presented. It was not on the market. I had asked them to please let me know when they intended to sell it, because we had nothing like this in the collection. And lo and behold, a few years later, the Duccio came on the market. So these are pictures that are of the highest quality. They're completely at opposite ends. The Pietro Lorenzetti is like a film score with a full cast of characters around the crucifixion, the high dramatic moment, and as you follow it along, punctuated with the most extraordinary formal mechanism, pairs of Roman soldiers parading across the background with their spears, much like the surrender of Breda of the Velázquez, used to punctuate the composition. And as you get to the right side, the one about to move off to space turns his head around, and we're redirected, and the horses come around the foreground. This is an extraordinary, brilliant cinematic way of creating the space here. And all to surround these, this marvelous group of the holy women with the Virgin fainting, framed by this brilliant vermilion and yellow. And then above this group of figures, the three crucified people. Now, early Italian painting is fraught with attributional problems. And the first thing I was obliged to say to Philippe is, not everybody will accept this as a late work by Pietro Lorenzetti. However, I've spoken to Larry, and Larry came up, we did a joint presentation. This was a rare occurrence. Lehman does not acquire. But I thought with Larry being so knowledgeable in Trecento, together with Everett, that the three of us could weigh in favor of Pietro Lorenzetti, and that this would perhaps carry the day. And that in any case, I said, you know, the attribution is really not that important. This is simply a great work of art, and it gives evidence of a kind that we don't have for what was going on in fresco painting, because it's like a fresco painting reduced to a miniature size, then with the intensity of an illuminator's colors. So that's one side of the Trecento, and the Duccio's, of course, the other side. This intense devotional world of extraordinary dignity, serenity, and a vision onto the divine. And I think it is an absolutely marvelous picture to have finished off with. And in this case, neither picture was inexpensive. This one was considerably more than the Pietro Lorenzetti, but each one seemed massively expensive at the time. But of course, it's one of these issues that I think is so important to remember, and I'm sure it's the same with the Gelman collection, that the importance is not what was spent, but that it get into the museum, into a public collection, and that 30 years down the road, nobody is going to ask whether you paid too much for something, but it is simply how could you let that get away? And both of these things really have transformed the collection. I remember at the outset, one of the ideas of the exhibition was transformative works of art, and I would say that these two are absolutely transformative works of art. Nobody writing on the collections at the Metropolitan would omit these two pictures. I don't know that there's anything else that I wanted to say, except that I hope that they inspire, in turn, as is the hope of all curators, that an acquisition that we make inspires collectors to collect in that area. And this, I think, is the dynamic between the museum and its public. I know the collectors of Baroque art, a number of them have told me that when they came to the age of Caravaggio, they thought, wow, this is fantastic. And of course, underpriced pictures. I can buy some of these things. And this, I think, is part of the whole the whole dynamic that we try and establish, not only with an appreciative public, but with a collecting public. And I was very pleased last year to get rung up by somebody who collects 20th century paintings, who now owns 2 gold ground pictures to put with his 20th century art. And it's a perfect anybody who knows the history of the rediscovery of the primitives and modernism knows that there's a long, long history of this. So I would just, that's what I would like to emphasize, is how important collecting is, both for the museum and on, it's a it's a shared, it's really a shared process, private collectors, public collecting, and the sort of dynamic we establish between them.